Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me today to start off the second decade of Shmee150 on YouTube. Now 10 years plus a day or two since my first ever video. The previous one of course was taking all 10 of the Shmeemobiles to a location to shoot them together to celebrate the anniversary reaching that amount of time, but also a few other things I'd like to tell you about today. Plus of course I want to answer by far and away the most frequent question that came from you guys. Where is my Suzuki Jimny? Well, it might have shrunk ever so slightly and now be off-roading over the cover on the Ford GT. We will talk more about that in a second, but I want to answer this question because if I got £1 from every single person that asked in the YouTube comments, on Instagram, sent direct messages and emails where that car was, well right now I'd probably be going out to buy a brand new Bugatti Chiron or something. So today we will talk about that. We will have an update as well about the various Shmeemobiles, touch on a few different things, but let's crack on then. Where is the Suzuki Jimny? Of course, that is a teeny bit of an exaggeration. A Bugatti Chiron costs about £2.5 million, and to be honest, I have not had 2.5 million questions, but it has felt like a lot of you guys are not aware of what happened to my Suzuki Jimny. Of course, I picked up the little off-roader in May last year. We had a couple of videos with the car, drove it around London for a bit, and then when I went to the USA, it kind of vanished. Obviously, I was off driving in the Ford GT, which now has my 1:18 scale Jimny model sitting and kind of climbing over the top of it. Many of you will know I'm a big fan of scale models. I have one to match each and every car that I have owned to date, all in the same scale, which looks really cool and will be a big part of the Shmuseum in the future, but that is actually all I have left at the moment to remember the Jimny, because, to get straight to the point, I'm afraid to say that I did sell it. Now back in August, I did actually say in a video that the Jimny had been sold while I was out in the USA, actually in a video driving in that car, but basically to give you a kind of summary of what happened, I ordered the Jimny expecting it to come in January last year. I had the intention to do the whole Gmimi kit to make it look like a G-Wagon ahead of the arrival of my G63 that was due later in the year. The Jimny then got delayed from January to February to March to April, and I didn't end up collecting it until May. Simultaneously, the G63 came forwards a little bit and eventually arrived in June. So there was only 4 weeks between them. Now, as much as I love cars and I love collecting cars, I did need to be a little bit sensible, particularly heading off to the USA with the number of spaces where cars were being parked, what was going to happen. So ultimately, I was kind of sitting there thinking, what am I going to use this car for? I'm not really sure. Then when I was off in the US, in my Ford GT, a friend of a friend was looking to buy one who came through my friend and basically said, could he buy it? And I kind of said yes, because I figured, what was I going to do with it, really? Given I had the G63 already, given I knew I was coming back home to take delivery of the GTR Pro and also the Supra, I knew the end of this year was going to be pretty busy, I knew the future was going to be pretty busy. I say this year, I mean of course last year, 2019, so kind of everything came together to ultimately just let the car go. And I did do a video, like I said, where I did announce that, where I did say that the Jimny had been sold. The Jimny. Now I do need to tell you guys something. I am afraid to say that I have sold the Jimny. It has gone, it now has a new owner, it is no longer mine. And back to the current day, where I'm sure some of you are wondering, do I have any regrets about selling the Jimny? And this is quite an interesting one that I get asked quite a lot about former Shmeemobiles, previous cars that I've owned, whether that's my first ever car, my Renault Clio 1.2, or the car that I had 10 years ago when I started this channel, which was my BMW 123D, but even some of the more recent cars. My Porsche 981 Cayman GT4, my 911 GT3, because I don't currently own a Porsche, also my 675 LT Coupe, that's one a lot of you ask me about all of the time. But I think when it comes to previous cars that you've owned, there are a few factors involved to keep cars, particularly the more expensive ones. Obviously there's the cost and the financial side, but there's also the storage. And storage and space here, particularly in central London, comes at an absolute premium. I do rent these spaces here in this private supercar storage, but of course they cost me a couple of £1,000s each per year. Now considering the cost of the Jimny, I had an SZ5, so it was about, I think, £18,000, just over. It was going to cost me about, what, 15% of that per year, just to park it here in the storage, and I couldn't really justify that, especially knowing that towards the end of the year, I was going to get back, the GTR Pro was going to be ready to collect, as was the Toyota Supra. So we were going to have a lot of crazy things going on. I wasn't going to be in the UK much. We would get into 2020 where we are now. The big adventures and trips are coming up, and I'll tell you a little bit more about where some of these are going to be going later this year. Some big plans ahead, so later on in this video. But with all of that coming up, I just couldn't really justify it. The G63, the kind of trade from the Jimny to the G63, the difference between those two cars in terms of price, but also obviously performance and the luxury level, and just as much as I would have loved to, I couldn't do it at the time, and there was obviously somebody, a friend of a friend, who was keen to get the car. That's just sometimes how these things go. You can't predict, you can't write them out, you can't really plan them, but ultimately, a Jimny traded up to a G63. And that's a pretty good way to go if you ask me. I think a lot of you guys might not actually be familiar with what my first ever video was, so I'm going to play that in just a second. Of course, it was now over a decade ago. Time has absolutely flown because I can remember it like it was yesterday. But I was going along in central London, and there was a Ferrari 458 Italia and a Lamborghini Murcielago LP670-4 Super Veloce, two cars which are still epic to this day. Crazy to think that they were out 10 years ago, but they were both brand new. It was a Top Gear Awards event evening at Bibendum in central London, and being winter and being a big fan of skiing, I'd recently bought myself a new video camera to film some videos when I got out to the mountains. Except of course I was in London, so what was I going to film? I was a big fan of taking photos at the time to post them on forums, to post them on my Facebook page, and I tried out a video and I stuck it on YouTube. I was viewing YouTube videos at the time, some big names back then, Street Supercars, Marcatino, Brian Zook, lots of car channels, uploaded it, and I remember when it got like 1,000 views, I was so excited. Those numbers back then seemed huge. Of course, things have changed slightly. The understanding of what YouTube is has changed massively in that time. But in the 10 years, we've had 2 leap years. This is a crazy stat. 3,652 days, and in that time, I have uploaded 3,887 videos. That is more than a video per day for the last 10 whole years. I've basically never taken time stopping. I think the longest I might have gone without videos is probably a couple of days, certainly in the last few years, a day or so at most, which has been crazy for me. It's been a massive adventure. Obviously, pretty much every day I'm thinking, what am I filming? What are the videos going to be? Where am I going? Non-stop travel, non-stop awesomeness, really, and I can't thank you enough, like I said in my 10-year video, for being part of this adventure and journey, because I love each and every minute of it, even if I don't sleep an entire night, because I'm trying to get a video out, to get it edited, to get it online, to get it uploaded. It's a crazy thing that didn't exist back then, and to have filmed that first video, and then more car spotting videos, more random things, more of the cars from the Middle East over in London in the summer, to come today to this, still to me doesn't quite make sense, and I can't thank you guys enough for being part of that. So what is next with all of these, the Shmeemobiles? Where are they going to be going this year? Well, I think the first thing is, of course, sadly, the M8 GC 1 of 8 is going to be returning to BMW at some point soon. I'm not entirely sure where and what I'll be doing with the Supra. I did think I would start modifying it, like some of my friends over in the US, Stradman, Daily Driven Exotics, Parker from Vehicle Virgins have all done, but being the A90 edition, being the satin grey, one of 24 UK cars, I think I'm probably going to be keeping it stock. It's a special car, it's an important car. I even have a certificate signed by Akio Toyoda that has the car's VIN number on it as well. All very special. I do have the dashboard inserts that still need to be installed, but the big things are going to be some of the familiar trips, the trips you've seen before, the likes of the Ware Shmee Tour in spring, a Ringwing Ting Tour, taking a number of the cars to the Nürburgring. I'm pretty tempted, haven't committed to it, I'm going to add that right now, to take the Senna to the USA this summer, like I did with the Ford GT. I feel like, having not driven that car for the second half of 2019, it needs to be back on the channel, and how epic would it be to drive that on, say, a track like Laguna Seca or Circuit of the Americas or something like that during this summer. The GTR Pro will be out and about in anger, out and about in anger. Of course, it will be joined later in the year by the GTR Roadster. What else is going on? The 675, I'm going to take that out a lot more as well. In fact, the Ware Shmee Tour this year, the early plans are looking pretty crazy. Let's just say it might involve 5 of these cars going off to various different places. If I can work out all the logistics, this is going to be beyond epic. But it'll be good to stretch the legs of the LT again. It hasn't really been driven all that much for the last year or two. In its first year, I took it everywhere. But since then, well, I'm trying to kind of mixing up the opportunities, the driving experiences. And by the way, the GT8 is here as well. It's just parked up at the end of the line at the moment because I needed to move it briefly. And obviously we've got lots of other cars around in the storage. But basically, it's going to be a busy year. A lot of cars, a lot of things coming up. Sadly though, no Suzuki Jimny, and like I said earlier, I apologise for those of you who didn't necessarily see me saying that I had sold it in that first video where I announced it during the tour, but yes, now you know. So if you see somebody commenting, where's the Jimny, please do answer on my behalf that I sold it back last summer, unfortunately just owing to a lack of space really and a lack of opportunities to actually use it and to drive it. But I think more or less, that is probably it for today's update. The first video of the second decade. It is a very exciting time. There is going to be a lot of stuff happening this year that I can't wait for. It is going to be bigger and better than ever before. So thank you very much, as always, for your support. Without you guys, without the squad, this wouldn't be possible. Living the supercar dream, sharing these experiences. We're now a family of almost 2 million here on YouTube, 2.5 million on Facebook, about 1.5 million on Instagram. This sounds absolutely insane to me to this day, that 10 years ago, this is where it all might have gone. But thank you for being part of it. Thank you for following the journey. Thank you for coming along. And I hope you're enjoying the content. And I hope that you're going to enjoy the things ahead for this year. Like I said, big things in the works, big things I can't wait to experience and to share with you as well. So thank you very much once again, guys, for your support. I appreciate it an awful lot. And I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.